Okay, this is Willie Jones, and you've tuned in to another edition of Women for Progress Media. And our show today, of course, is the Working Mom Report. Thank you all so much for tuning in and being part of supporting this network. Of course, Women for Progress have been around now 47 years, but this radio network is actually celebrating 15 years. That's a great milestone for a radio network that was created by women, for women, produced by women, and hosted by women. And we're excited now to have some even men that are part of our radio network. Of course, Dr. Gillian, who does an amazing job with the Man Cave. Look, if you have not tuned into his show on fourth Thursdays, he brings on a group of men leaders in our communities, and they always have a conversation that you just can't even Google. Okay, so tune in every fourth Thursday at 5:30 and check him out. And of course, if you want to see of our other programming, then we have a lot of great new programming that's coming online for this summer and fall. Go to womenforprogressradio.com and you can check out and make sure you put in your calendars so you can stay tuned to those. But the Working Woman Report right here every Wednesday from 12 to 1. Most times we're live, but sometimes, I'm a working girl. And so sometimes I can't come to you live, but we'll try to replay a previous show and get you caught up. That'll be a time when you can do that. But we're so excited, and we're getting ready to launch a new podcast studio. So that should be all in place this week. So we're going to be in a new space, right downtown. And so you'll be able to stop in sometime to say hello to us. So just so many wonderful opportunities for you, the community, to engage with us. And we want you to stay tuned and make sure you continue to support our work. And today I have, this particular show, the main focus and mission and goal of it is spotlight the work of women throughout the state of Mississippi. And we want our voters, we want people in our community, we want leaders to understand the impact of what the work of women and what we do that impacts our economy, impacts our communities. And that's what this conversation is all about today. In addition to, of course, overall, the goal of Women for Progress is to inform and to educate and to engage. And that's what we're doing today during our lunch hour. And today I'm meeting with somebody who this is not her first rodeo on Women for Progress Radio and Media. And she's been with us a long time, a member of Women for Progress, and continues to be one of the leading organizations in the state of Mississippi that is supporting women and the uplift for women and their economic security. Miss Cassandra Welchlin, who's Executive Director of Mississippi Black Women Roundtable. Welcome back to the show, Cassandra.
Thank you. It's always good to be here with you and the community.
Well, thank you so much. And we got to get back to having more of these conversations. So I know you're a busy lady. So thank you for joining us today. But I want to get right into the conversation because this hour will fly by. And I have a lot of information that I want to be able to share and update our community on. But I want to jump right into it. Cassandra, one of the things I always want our audience to know is a little bit about the leaders that I talk to. You've been in this arena around empowerment of women, social work, investing in communities and community development. What was the catalyst for this career, this amazing journey that you've been on?
I really have to take it back to, my family and also the professors at Jackson State University. My family, I often say my mom's life, and, folks have heard me say this story, my mom, her work life really taught me what justice was, being a low wage worker at one of the state offices, the Woodfolk building, and she was a maid. And I saw her struggles as a maid and how she would have to take me to work with her, hide me in the utility closet while she goes out and, work. But then my grandmother, she was really the caregiver of the community. She really taught me what service was. And so I'm the eldest grandchild. And at age 9, she would cook, and then she would say, Cassandra, I need you to take the food over to Pops or Miss Taylor. And I would have to be there. And she's like, don't just take the food, but you need to sit there with them and you need to talk to them. And so that kind of compassion and empathy really grew in my heart. So I always have been involved in service work. It's really one of my love languages. I just love to serve. But it wasn't until I got to Jackson State University, I was going to go into psychology because I love people, wanted to talk to people. But a friend of mine invited me to one of her social work classes, and it was on policy and advocacy. And I tell you, it changed my life. And that day I changed my major. And it was those professors. It was Dr. Williams, Dr. Prater, Dr. Brooks, Miss Brooks, Miss Ellis. They really wrapped their arms around me and took me in and saw that I had something. And they really poured into me and really exposed me. They really gave me exposure to community, exposure to information. And one of the things that happened is they saw that that the way I thought about the world was very globally. And so they actually told me I was going to Africa. Nothing, I couldn't ask no questions. And my mom was like, "You're not going." And so they sat down. My mom was like, she really has something here. And so I did. They actually with they took me. They was like, "You're going to Africa." And so I spent some time over in Africa doing human rights work and social work and organizing, and it just exposed my world, just blew the top off. And that really, all of those things really propelled me to do, what I do now. I'm so thankful for my family, but those social workers really took me in. It was like, you can do social work at different levels in different ways. And it was really great that I was able to connect it back to the global community, and to learn different models. And it's just been, incredible. And I can never also thank Hollis Watkins, who really taught me the organizing way of doing this, that if you're going to do policy, you got to do it, at the community level with organizing.
Well, Cassandra, we know that this work is, it can be slow. There's of course high moments, of course, and then there's empower moments. And then there's a whole bunch of no's before you get to yes. How do you, when you think about what you learned earlier, and like you said, what seasoned your heart and really got you going, how do you stay motivated now in the work? How has that work changed and impact even your motivation to continue and do it every day and get up and try to come up with new ideas and the new approaches of doing things?
Yeah, it's so interesting because that's the conversation, I've been having with some of my girlfriends and folks, in the work. And a couple of things have come up. We've talked a lot about our faith and also history, and understanding that, this really is a long game, and we're put here for a season to do what we've been, called to do. And so we need to just live in that, and understanding that we're not going to fix all the things, but what we can do is do what we know, what we've been called to do. And our faith. And so it's been interesting. We've been really talking about our faith, how we cannot separate, our spirituality from what we've been called to do, and from this moment that we're living in. And so that's been really fueling me. But the other thing is rest, and it's also finding joy with my family. I came home. I was traveling. I don't even know where I was. And I remember I was just tired, and my kids was like, "Mama, come on, come go outside with us and let's draw." And I was like, "I'm tired. I don't want to." And they kept saying, "Mama, come on." And something quickened in me, and it was like, you're not going to have these opportunities always, but your kids can fuel you with joy. And so I did. I went outside. I was still in my PJs, and I don't like going outside in my PJs, but I was still outside in the PJs. I didn't have any shoes on, and they gave me chalk, and we just colored the whole morning. And I have to tell you, it really re-energized me and gave life back to me. And so spending time and reprioritizing my day to really be with my children have really helped me a lot. And then that gives me rest, it gives me joy, and then I'm able to go back in and and do what we need to do. But I'm
Yeah.
also understanding that we got to slow down a little bit.
And you can go back to it with fresh lenses. Um,
Yes.
so, and as a woman of a certain age and a grandmother of 5, I want to say to young women too that are listening to us right now, young women, middle-aged women, definitely before you get to my age, which I want to talk about, but but you don't want to wait until this time to begin to understand that concept of finding that joy and that rest and that all of that before you get to this age. You need to be doing it every single day. I don't care if you're 25.
Yeah.
We I remember, oh my God, when I was 25, I get excited even thinking about what I was doing when I was 25. Oh my goodness, if I had that type of energy and that type of courage. I was so courageous when I was 25 years old. And not that I'm not courageous now, but it was a different type of courageous. I mean, it was what I consider complete. It was complete. I nobody could not tell me that I was not going to do something. I was not going to be great. What I, it just was a different time. And I'm sure for many of us, that's what we are. And it becomes all consuming.
Yes.
We forget about the day to day. And I just want to say to young women is find your space, make sure the joy happens now rather than later. And even if you don't have children, when we get to the point where we are right now, when you have young children, and is that even if you don't have children, you have to find that time. What is that thing that brings you joy? And that could be friends, that could be neighbors, that could be traveling, that could be a lot of different things. So thank you for sharing that, and I love that, and because we want women like you and so many others to stay in the struggle, to
Right.
stay in the work, and we need you to be fresh, because this
Yes.
world is moving so fast, Cassandra. Innovation and ideas and vision, and discipline, is so important now because it's not easy. I mean, when I was in my 20s, it was easy. It was
Yeah.
easy to stay, to move, because things were not moving as fast as it is now. But it's a challenge for us environmentally. So I want to move right into a big topic today, and then we'll come back a little bit. But this thing about Equal Pay Day that Mississippi Black Women Roundtable have been uplifting, and then when we talk about women and what we've achieved over the years, we think, are we still having this topic? And we say even more so today because we know what's happening in our world, and a lot of our accomplishments are now people are they're having short memory on
Right.
what it took for us to get here to where we are. So when we talk about Equal Pay Day for Black women, why Equal Pay Day for Black women compared to Equal Pay Day overall? Tell us why, the significance of that, and why we are saying equal pay for Black women.
Yeah, very good question. So, Black Women's Equal Pay Day really symbolizes, it's interesting how far we have to work um, into the new year to earn what a white non Hispanic man earned at the end of last year. So,
Mm,
we're talking about 7 months more
wow.
into this new year to earn. And so, Black women who work full time year round nationally are making 66 cents on the dollar. So, what that means is that over a 40-year career, that disparity can result nearly $1 million in lost earnings. That's significant.
Mhm.
And in Mississippi, for Black women, including part time and seasonal workers, we earn 53 cents on the dollar. I think what's significant about this is that it doesn't matter what occupation you in, it doesn't matter how many degrees you have, we are still earning less than white women in the country and in Mississippi. And so that's a real great disparity. You think about, we don't get our full dollar. Like, what does that mean, and what could we do with the rest of that money? We're losing money that could go towards retirement, as we talking about, getting older. I have a friend who just retired. She's not even 60 yet, but she retired, right? And so, but how much money did she lose that could have gone towards that retirement? We're talking about money that we could use for, healthcare, childcare, go experience joy, take our families on vacations, right? Groceries, all of those things. And that's why we're talking about this day. It really is important that we understand that this hasn't gone away and it's still here. And we want to raise the awareness and tell people even more, what we can do about it.
Now, you shared with us the numbers. You shared us with the statistics and where the gaps and stuff are. What are the issues that are driving this still in 2025, that this gap still exists? What is it causing that to still linger?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I got to say that, this really is about, it's really rooted in good old fashioned racial and gender discrimination.
Mm.
And we got to know that going into this conversation. Women's labor has never been valued as much as men's labor. And it really doesn't matter what race you are, like our labor wasn't valued. But I will say that Black women's labor was valued even less, right? Because we were just the bodies that pushed the labor to control the economics, particularly, when it came to slavery and the Jim Crow South. And so when you talk about gender, you're talking about race. So it's just rooted in white supremacy and in discrimination. That's how this country, was built. So the other thing that causes this is that we have been underpaid, undervalued, and over represented, in many jobs, particularly in low-paying jobs. But a couple of things, I know you remember, because you were part of, and you are a part of the coalition, but you were part of the work we were doing to try to get a good equal pay bill passed for forever, the last, 10 to 7 years. And we finally in 2022 was working to push for a good equal pay law. But Mississippi didn't get it right. And so additional things that causes the wage gap is salary history. When a job expressly relies on the salary history set by the previous employer. We already know that, women make less, but when you pay a woman based on her previous job, that perpetuates the wage gap. Another thing is banning employees from talking about their salary in the workplace. And so often, we think about Lillie Ledbetter, who was a champion, and she transitioned this year, but she was such a champion. And under the Obama administration, he passed the Lillie Ledbetter Act. One of the things that happened with her was that they were banned from discussing their salaries. And it wasn't until someone left a note on the copy machine that she became aware that she had been getting underpaid, and her colleague was getting paid more. She's been doing the same job, but she was getting significantly less. If you're not able to discuss that, you're not able to know what your colleague is making. Mm-hmm. And another thing that continues to perpetuate this is around wage negotiation. Oftentimes, women are looked upon not so favorably when we are trying to negotiate. Again, this goes back to gender bias and gender discrimination. It's okay for a man to ask for, you know, $20 and even more. But when a woman does that, it's like, well, who are you to ask for that? Your value and your work is not comparable. And so what tends to happen is that we ask for less, or when we go in and negotiate, we're looked upon negatively. So those are some of the things that continues to perpetuate the wage gap.
Yeah. Yeah, and those things go back way back, and not many of them is not changed. And a lot of women are going back and upskilling, they're getting additional degrees, and sometimes that is not making the bigger chip off the block as it needs to be. So there continues to be challenges on that. So when you talked about three significant things that have led to these particular issues in Mississippi, because before we get too far down in the conversation, I want to right up at the top to say, we this is something that Mississippi Black Women Roundtable is a priority for you all year after year after year to make a significant difference here. What additional things moving forward are we utilizing to tackle these particular issues and changes? Have you seen a momentum for them? I mean, what do we do? Where do we go from here into 2025, Cassandra, when we're still being faced with these particular issues? And we know at some point we have to put not only just a band-aid on these things, but we have to put a stop on them so that women continue to move forward and not stay where they are or move backwards. What can we do? What are some of the things that your organization is doing? And let us share with us so we can be part of that fight.
So in 2022, and I think there's a couple of things. In 2022, you heard me say, and you were part of it, that Mississippi passed an equal pay bill, but unfortunately, it's not equal. And again, Mississippi missed the mark. So a couple things in that bill, and this is what we are working to, and we have been since 2022, every legislative session. We have been working to amend that bill so that it can really be a good equal pay bill. But what the Mississippi bill did and does is that it really does rubber stamps an employer's decision to pay, women less. So a couple things it does. So it really codifies and gives employers, the right to continue to discriminate. And I believe that, and you've been on our team to help us talk to employers about, this is a win-win for businesses. But one of the things, that our Mississippi bill does is that it relies on salary history, expressly, like I just talked about, relying on the previous salary of the employee's job, and they base that salary, this new job, on that last salary. Again, that undermines the point of equal pay. Another thing that this bill does is it discriminates based on the continuity of employment history. So what this means specifically is that it really is saying it's okay to pay a woman less than a man doing the same job because she took time off to welcome a new baby or to care for a sick family member. Now, this is deeply ingrained in the gender wage gap. And so what I call this is a penalty. Like you're penalizing women for being women, right?
Yes.
And we know that we are the caregivers. We have babies, right? And it's really unfortunate that is happening in this time, in this country. And the other thing, is this. And so those are some of the things that's in our bill. And our bill in Mississippi, it relies on gender and not race. Again, you just heard me talk about the data that, white women make way more than that. Still, they're losing cents on the dollar. But Black women and women of color are losing even more. So our bill really needs to be more comprehensive and include race in there. But we have some protections under the federal law. It's actually better than Mississippi law, but still not as good, right? And so what we're telling people is that you still have protections under the federal law, under the Ledbetter Act. There's still some protections that's there, even though the current administration is really rolling back a lot of the executive orders in the Department of Labor. But the other thing that we can do is educate ourselves around educating ourselves to negotiate in our salaries, even though there is bias and we're looked upon negatively. We have to step into that. We have to demand and negotiate our salaries. The other thing I think what's important is employers really should when they are putting job descriptions out, they really should put what the salary range is, so that it can be transparent as well. We try to model that internally. We don't tell people you can't talk about your salaries. We don't ask what your salary was from a previous job. So those are some things that can happen. But what this means though, Willie, I think even more is that this also is contributing to the brain drain in this state. We know
Well,
that.
I'll put you on pause right there, because you're touching on that employer piece.
Yes.
And I want to inform our public that's listening right now, and any employers, if you're an HR manager, let me drop a little bit of something with you too. When we talk about from the employer perspective and employees on where we are right now, and this is post-COVID, this is in 2025, this is in where we're looking at a new way of the future of workforce. When I'm talking to employers and people that are in this workforce development work that I am, is it is, employers are very challenged right now with staffing. I don't care what industry you in, whether you're in the state of Mississippi or anywhere in the country, staffing remains, having good people that's going to provide a great skills that's going to help you expand your capacity. It's a challenge right now to keep people. And so when we talk about wage and fixing this wage gap, transparency is a number one tool in recruiting good people. So if you have you have positions out there, post what those salaries is and the pay is, so folks will know. Because and then when folks come to you and say, well, hey, can I get a $10,000 increase, or why are you paying this for this particular position, or whatever it is, I love sitting with employees and say, I can tell you how you get here. Because I want you to achieve, because the more motivation that you have to do more, to be greater, that's going to help me. So I say to employers, be transparent of what your pay structure is, and don't be hesitant or ashamed of paying Joe or Jane a particular salary for his or her title, if you can make sure that your job description, what those duties and responsibilities are, and most significant, how does that role impact your business? Right. And so when I talk about transparency, is we got to spend time developing those job descriptions, the salaries, the policies that drive those salaries when we're doing our hiring process. All of that involves transparency, preparation, etc., so that we know when people come to the table as employers, whether they've been there a year with you or 10 years with you, they feel good about, they know what's going on behind the scenes. They know how to, if they started out at this particular job, they know how to get to that next particular job. They can look at the policies and say, here's what the policies is. So for employers, I say to you, those of you that are challenged around staffing, you got to look at transparency. And that's another reason. And look, when you look at transparency, and you start evaluating what your salaries and the roles involved, something, if there's a problem there, it's a ding ding ding, here's a light here. I'm paying Jane this particular amount of money and I'm paying Paul this amount of money. Let me fix this.
Right.
Let me figure out how to fix this. And then now we're all working on success together. I'm as an employee, I benefit. As an employer, I benefit, and those particular things happen. And then the other thing I'm going to say to women, you got to go where the money is. Don't think you got to be sitting in retail jobs, and ain't nothing wrong with retail. Somebody got to be behind that counter doing that work, and that's okay for entry-level job. But I say to women, you got to look and go for those opportunities where the money is, the benefits are, and don't be afraid to get there. And sometimes that's a challenge. It ain't easy, because we got women who, Cassandra, are raising children. They're trying to pay mortgage. They're trying to do all those things. And sometimes they don't have the time to upskill themselves, to get additional training, to hunt for the jobs. But I tell you, those of us who know where the bones are buried, we need to share that information so women will be able to know where those opportunities are. And most importantly, Cassandra, they need to know the pathway to get there. Okay. Right. Now, we can't overlook this equal pay issue, because that's serious and that's real. Okay. That's real. And we have to bring employers into discussion. I know you do that a lot with the work you do. Employers, we are the ones that can fix this.
Yes.
Okay. And even when the government says it's okay, and I'm gonna pat you on the hand, and okay, I'm gonna cover you, as employers, what's significant for us is it impacts our pocketbooks. I'm talking about our pocketbooks as employers. I'm not talking about employees. I'm talking about as employers. So if you're not doing what you need to do in this era of staffing and trying to hire good people, it's going to impact your ability to be great in this industry and in this market. You don't want to be number 3 in your market. You want to be number 1 in your market. And you got to start with the people who are helping you do that on a daily basis. And this thing about male and female and all these particular things here, you should be just looking at what does this person bring to the table to me? It doesn't matter if she's male or female. How can she impact this job for me? And so I urge employers out there to use the fixing of this gap as a way to expand your capacity, as your way for you to come from number 10 in your market to number 1 in your market. Use women and their talent and their skill, women and men, but use women who have the talent, who have the ability. And if they don't have the skill, hey, is this a person interested in skilling? Maybe I need to invest in her. And even when you're sitting with people, you say, well, hey, yeah, Joe is getting paid this amount of money, but because I need you to have this particular skill, maybe I can pay for you to get some training to get to where you need to be. I don't want you to leave. And I know you're not getting paid the exact what you want to get paid, but how can I help you get there? And that's where we are with employers. That's where we are staffing. And I hope that didn't get us off track, Cassandra, but I had to say that because I feel that employers is the key to all of this. It's balancing this ship for us. And I'm going to turn it back to you.
No, I agree. I was going to say, this isn't just a woman's issue.
Yeah.
It really, and it's not just a family issue. It really is a business issue as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really, really is. We all, go together.
Yeah.
And so this is so important for businesses to understand, like, if you want to be, the best employer, then that means changing some of your policies and practice, doing an audit, internally to see, how are we paying? Is it not being equitable? Those are some of the things that you can do just right now, as you said, Willie. But we got to be able to understand that this isn't just a woman's issue, right? It's a family issue. It's a business issue.
Right, right.
Yep.
And you talked a lot earlier, Cassandra, about having conversations. I think even if you don't work for a particular company and you know these types of things exist, or even if you don't know they exist within a particular company because you don't have inside knowledge, but wherever we're talking to HR people, whether you male or female. And I find a lot of our HR professionals are women,
Yep.
but they have a job to do and they want to keep their job at that particular employer. But I tell you, sometimes educating these HR directors on these statistics and these numbers that you have shared with us today, many of them don't know what those numbers are. And they don't know what the history has been and how these things particularly exist. And most importantly, they don't know what the solutions are, you
That's
know.
right.
So like when we're talking here about, like you mentioned auditing and making sure that we're looking at our policies and procedures and things like that, our leaders within the organization, because we know those people are our neighbors, those
Right.
people go to our churches. So having conversations with those particular individuals helps us also get this thing right. And Cassandra, if you would have to share with our audience on why, because I still think people, when they think of the whole idea of equal pay in 2025, they think it's some kind of myth or something. Um, that this got to be, who's still dealing with this issue. Tell people why that this is a real, still remains a real crisis for women, and it still impacts the overall economic security for a large group of women.
Yeah. So I can even get very specific as to like where we see some of these gaps at. So we see a lot of the gaps in the wage disparities in higher ed. Like if folks are, teaching in higher ed, there's a lot of gaps that exist between, male and female. Even in the hospital settings, in the medical profession, it exists, there. Men are making way more. And it's interesting what happens, in these institutions when these cases are being brought up. One of the things that we notice is that they try to resolve it, by having employees sign, non-disclosure agreements in which they're not able to tell us their full story. But some of them are saying, no, we're not having that conversation. Mississippi, if you remember, just a couple of months ago, there was an attorney who was working, in the Mississippi, I believe the Senate. She was an attorney, and she learned that she was making way less than a white counterpart here in Mississippi. And so she
Mhm.
actually has taken that case to court, not to court, but she has filed, a lawsuit around that. So it is real. I think what happens too, though, is that when we're talking about lower wages or workers that are low earners, oftentimes they don't always see where that wage gap exists. But I had conversations with folks, in the restaurant, business, or um, uh, in factories where they have seen that maybe men get paid a little bit more, even if it's just a dollar. It's still, a wage gap.
Mhm.
And so I think we have to be aware that it exists all across. And we understand that Mississippi hasn't raised the wage, the minimum wage. We know that the federal minimum wage hadn't changed. And so one of the things that we want to see happen is that, Mississippi needs to restore the ballot initiative process so that the people can have a say, that yes, we want our wages to increase even beyond $15,
Mhm.
an hour, because even that's not enough. And really,
That's nowhere.
that.
It's nowhere enough.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised employers call me wanting people, and when I get to the question, what are you starting out paying? They tell me $11 an hour. I said, good luck with that. I don't have, I'm going to tell you right now, our conversation needs to end, but let me share with you what you need to do, because you can't just shut them down. A lot of
Yeah.
these employers don't understand you can't do anything with $11 an hour. And I'm not going to insult
Yeah.
anybody, because I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're a single person, you 18 years old, ain't nothing you can do with $11 an hour.
Yep.
And I'm not going to waste my time trying to put you in a job that you only going to be on long enough to where you can find a $15 an hour job. It does not make sense. It doesn't make good business sense. So I try to educate employers on where they can find the money, because a lot of them think, well, if I pay $15 an hour, I'm gonna, it's what, what is that going to do to my bottom line? But I try to work with employers to say, let's look at where you're spending your money at, and let's see if there are some ways that we can move some things over. And then I say to employers is, let's see how you can benefit by hiring at $15 an hour versus 11, because the quality of person you're going to get is better. The person going to stay with you longer, and you're going to have consistency. So I think an education piece with
Yeah.
employers are so very, very, very important. But like you said, Cassandra, I agree with you. $15 an hour is not even enough.
It's not. And you're talking about a state like Mississippi that's, the poorest of the poor.
Mhm.
And I keep also thinking, and I know we're talking about equal pay, but it's so connected. So two things. When we talk about occupation segregation, I think one of the things that you're doing really well, and we need more, women to be a part of these non-traditional jobs, such
Mhm.
as, the trucking business or, in
Even
construction,
in tech, even in
even
tech,
in tech.
people
Yes.
think because we got everybody got a same cell phone in their hand in their ear that women got to be working in tech. We are still single digits nationwide, so it's still considered a non-traditional job because women participation is in the single digits. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And so we need women to, put their footprint, in these fields. But the other thing I wanted to say when we talk about, a woman's pocketbook, and remember we did that campaign in 2022, where Women for Progress helped us collect all these purses, and we handed them put them on legislators' desks. It was the best thing ever. The best, and it was a talking point. Like, why do we have these purses all on our desk? But it made a point that women's pocketbooks really fuel the economy. So one of the things that is another visual that make it real plain. So a woman's pocketbook turns over and over, in her community. So she is buying gas from the local gas station. She's buying groceries from the grocery store, if there is a grocery store in her community.
Mm.
In particular, we're talking about, the rural communities in Mississippi. And if her car breaks down, or if her car breaks down and she has enough money, she's also going to go somewhere and get it fixed, right? Or if her stove breaks down, she got to go and get, she may go to one of the stores to get a stove. And so that money is recirculating back, in that community over and over and over again. So what that means is that that local community is building that local economy, which helps build, the state economy. And women, we're half the workforce. And so our money is, turning back over. But just think, as you say, I keep going back to, it is a business issue.
Yes.
It is a
Number one.
business issue. Yes, it is.
Number one, an economic situation. If nothing else, this is a this is an economic development conversation.
It
We're
is.
talking about equal pay, but really we're talking about economic development for the state of Mississippi. Black,
It
male,
is.
white, whatever you, wherever you are, rich and poor,
Yeah.
business owner, you're a school teacher. This issue impacts everybody.
I
And
think in 2019, one of the things that we developed a campaign called Equal Pay Committed Cities, and we're going to be
oh,
relaunching that. And Jackson was our first city that joined us. And so what that meant is that the city said that we're going to commit to paying our workers equitably. We're going to make sure that our HR is evaluating the wage data to see if there's any gaps. They are going to be just committed. And then they were going to bring along businesses who would say that we too are committed to this and will be doing the same thing. And so Jackson was our first, and that was in 2019. And we've had other cities, and we want to expand that. So if we can get cities who can commit to saying, I'm the best employer, in the state, and there's, and they become the best model, but then they're saying, but let me not just be the best city, let me also have my businesses in the city to also be a part of that. So this is definitely an economic development, because we're talking about advancing women's economic security that fuels, our economy.
I like that idea about the cities and then the businesses bringing in, Cassandra. And I think that's something when we talk about what can we do moving forward. I love the idea of engaging businesses within the city, and especially those who are doing contracts with the city.
That's
but
right.
Even just businesses in general within the city that or county. Because what happens there, we look for organizations like yours to have dialogue with our businesses and say, this is what good wage policy looks like. What does the wage need to be like to make sure that we're having productive citizens that can be really economically secure? So now you in your organization and many others are saying this is what it looks like, because many of us as employers, we don't know what that looks like. All of us sit and we sit at different places in different stages. If I'm a hiring person or I'm an owner, I live in one type of neighborhood, I live in right type of environment, I'm in a certain income level, so I may not know have access to these statistics that you're talking about. So what does good wages look like? What is a living wage? I hear you talk about that a lot. What is living wage? Do we even know, do the average person know what living wage means? So I'm
Right.
saying the definition. And so I think this is a wonderful way for us, and I can see us all getting on board with this, because that sounds exciting. I would like for us to explore that much more. That's exciting stuff, especially where we are right now.
Absolutely.
For staffing. And one of the things that the governor and and his team and many of the agencies that are involved in workforce development, one of their biggest goals is how do we increase the participation rate for all folks in the state of Mississippi. So I think that's one of the key things that we can share with these entities and say, this is how we get there. The participation rate in the state of Mississippi is still on about 54%. I think it's only jumped maybe 1% in the last couple of years. And so it's been tough moving that needle. But if we kind of help employers determine what a living wage looks like and kind of get those wages up, I think that really helps also our governor and his team get to those particular numbers, is making sure that all adults, those who want a job, those who want a good career and good wages, are being able to access it. And I don't know if we talked about, even when we talk about keeping young people here, those that are not leaving the state, that's a whole, another issue. But we have just a few minutes, and I got to touch on just one other topic. And that's why we need more than one conversation.
Right. I'll come back.
Okay, so we this equal pay issue, two questions, two brief questions, and whatever we can get in with it. One, what do we need to be doing tomorrow for Equal Pay Day? And then second question, and these are the two questions, is I also want you to share what other barriers that are impacting economic security for women. Okay.
Yeah. So if folks can go on our social media page, we are involved in a couple of events on tomorrow. We're having a conversation with the former director of the EEOC tomorrow with some of our national partners, who is really going to be talking about what this moment means for federal workers who have been cut and been affected as it relates to the assault on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And
Mm.
so, if people can go on our social media page, they'll be able to sign up to be a part of that. So, I believe that's tomorrow at, I believe, 11 our time, 11 Central. So, folks can definitely do that. We have a toolkit that we've put out. Folks can grab that also from our social, just and we got some social media tweets out there or posts. So go ahead and look on our social media and post those things. We really want you involved, and then tag us in it. We want folks, if there are stories that folks have, we want to hear about that. So people can email us at info@msbwr.org, info@msbwr.org, because you can't argue with people's experiences, right? And so that would be one thing that people can do. We really want you involved. The other thing, you talk about what else is impacting women's economic security and families' economic security. This big ugly bill that just got passed in at the federal level, and we know it's going to impact Mississippi tremendously. So one of the things that we know is Medicaid cuts, the SNAP cuts are just going to be horrific. Mississippi's budget depends on the federal budget, the federal monies. Like, it makes up a tremendous amount of our state budget. And now we're about to get cut significantly in a state where there is a majority of poor people. And so one of the things that I think is really important is we're going to see cuts, coming down tremendously around healthcare and Medicaid. What I want to say is we've seen this happen in 2020 when Governor Barber cut almost, I believe, 60,000 people from the Medicaid rolls.
Right.
And it really impacted rural people and it impacted white people. And what happened was they had to, the governor had to put those people back, reverse, his policy, and put those people back on the roll because he saw that they looked like him, right? And it gave us an opportunity to coalition together, and it worked. It is my hope that when people start seeing these cuts, that we're able to coalition. To me, this is an opportunity for us to coalition together and do what we did in 2020. We're talking about 25 years ago, right? People need to be able to have their Social Security, have their Medicaid and their health care. Again, we've been trying to push for Medicaid expansion. We haven't gotten that far, but people are going to start experiencing these cuts, and it's going to be really important that they tap in and that they join, us and other partners, Care for Mississippi, join us in advocating for these cuts to not happen. And then the last thing is around SNAP benefits. About 400,000 Mississippians receive food stamps. Actually, I think it's about 420,000 receive food stamps in Mississippi. That's because, we're a poor state. And I think it goes back, and Willie, we talk about this, it goes right back to, this economic development. We got to get, wages higher. We got to make sure that employers are doing their part to close the wage gap, and that women are going into these non-traditional jobs and we can raise minimum wage, right? Mm-hmm. Like, all these things impact our economic security, but we're going to feel this impact around, these SNAP benefits. And I think it's going to be really more important, more than ever, that our legislators really, and our congressional, representatives and senators will, support their people and say, we can't live like this, and really push against this. So these are some things that's going to really impact us. And it's going to be really unfortunate. And it's going to be community. What we did in 2021 when the water crises happened, I believe it was, community is going to have to come in and help.
And I think you're right. And I think it's going to be the same type of crisis that we dealt with through the water crisis, and remember how it impacted communities.
Yep.
And people think it's the poorest of the poor that are tapping into SNAP benefits. We got working people, working mothers and fathers and two-parent households are even in need of those types of benefits. You know, I'm a widow and I'm an empty nester, and I spend twice as much time at Kroger when I do go to Kroger, because I try to shop out of my refrigerator and clear everything out before I even go to the market, because the prices of food
Yeah.
has gone up. But I promise you, I just noticed the other day, I spend twice as much time in the grocery store, because now I'm paying attention to the
That's
cost
right.
of this canned good or cost of this bread. I think I spend 5 or 10 minutes trying to pick out the bread that I'm going to choose for the day,
That's
because
right.
the prices has doubled. Every time I go to the shelf, it's a different price, and it's not lower, it's higher. It's like, oh my God, I bought this 30 days ago and it's $1.50 higher. So families are being very, very challenged right now. I can imagine those parents who have 2 children, 3 children, especially you have boys, when you sit them down for dinner and they eat a meal and 30 minutes later they're standing at the refrigerator opening up the door and trying to figure what they can eat for a snack.
That's right.
That's a big challenge for parents. And it is not just the poorest of the poor. Middle class families, no
Right.
matter what your economic situation is, the cost of food and the cost of living, whether you're in the state of Mississippi or all over, but specifically in Mississippi, it continues to go up. But wages aren't meeting that need. Women aren't getting the types of incomes that we're talking about today to be able to meet that need and meet those challenges around higher wages. And access is a whole nother conversation.
Yes. Yes. Access. Yeah.
Because if you don't have a good supermarket in your area, even the stores that you shop at, the quality of the food is not going to be as good. I'm just going to have to say it. And thank God for little markets and the cost plus and the cost market and the this market or whatever that is investing in communities that have food deserts. We thank you so much for doing the work you do. But I'm going to be honest with you, the dollars that you spend there and dollars you spend at other places are going to be very, very, very different. So these are crisis situation. I think we need to use that word, Cassandra,
Yes.
much more often. We're in a crisis situation, you know.
Yeah. And
And
Willie, I want to just talk back just briefly. I know we have to wrap up. The SNAP benefits, as they are going to get cut, we know that these local markets and gas stations actually accept the food stamps, right? And so that's going to impact their business as well. Again, everything is connected. And so if families' benefits are being cut, that means they're not going to be going back to that grocery store or that the market that's in their local communities. And so that's going to impact that business, and potentially it will, it has the potential to close, right? And so I just want to say that it really will have this domino effect.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave. This is some of our takeaways. One, of course, we want you to go to Mississippi Black Women Roundtable website at www.ms. Somebody was wonderful typing that in for me. I think I got it incorrect. msbwr.org, msbrw.org, and there's plenty of information that you can find out how you can engage. We also want you to use the email info@msbwr.org. We need you to share your stories, whether you got a SNAP story, whether you have a wage gap issue, especially if you have wage gap issues. If you have any type of issue around wages, they want to hear about it. And we want you to share those stories. And we need as many. There is no small story. All of them are great stories, because this is what women and families are dealing with. So we want you to email info@msbwr.org and share those stories with Mississippi Black Women Roundtable and be part of this process. And also at Mississippi Black Women Roundtable, that's also where you can get information. You can get connected to opportunities, or if you need help with the issue around wages, around SNAP, around insurance, about affordable health care, all those things. They have a wealth of basket of things there that if they don't have it, they know how to connect you to the people who can get it there. But we also mainly, our main topic today is about the Equal Pay Day, which is tomorrow, July 10th. And we want you to share information. We want you to pull down those graphics. We want you to go to Mississippi Black Women Roundtable Facebook page. And we want you to share the information there, because that's the way. It's a form of dialogue. It's a form of how you can be part of this conversation. So we want you to continue to do that. And then finally, I want to say, and I got to do this, Cassandra, as an employer and a workforce developer, if you're a woman,
that's right,
and you wanna know what the money is
that's
when
right.
it comes to jobs. And it ain't, and even though trucking is my thing and transportation is my thing, look, I got some other stuff in the basket. Okay. If you're looking for a job in tech, we have some no cost training available for you through the Mississippi Coding Academy, who has amazing things that they offer to you. So I want you to connect with us. Give us a call at 601-351-5858, 601-351-5858. Let us have a consultation with you around workforce development and see where we can connect you. And if we don't have the jobs or opportunities for you, we can tell you how to get there. If you need some upskilling, it doesn't matter if you need action planning, strategic planning, you want to know what opportunities are available through, not just through DSC, but also through Hines or through Jackson State or through other opportunities. We want you to help you get connected to there. We want to link hands with you and walk you through the process. You will never get just a telephone number at DSC. We're not going to just give you a telephone number and say, hey, okay, here, try this and see if this works. We want to link hands with you, and we want to help you go from A to Z. And Z meaning that you start to work on Monday morning in a job that's going to pay you good pay. Okay. And so we want you to reach out to us. Let us help you with that. Let us get you connected with that. And so we thank you so much, Cassandra, for having this conversation with us today. It's always good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
And
Yeah.
thank you so much. We lift you up. We thank you. We blow wind up under your wings, and we want you to keep flying. All your amazing women that are part of your organization down there. I've dropped in, and they're just amazing, talented, resourceful, beautiful women that you have pulled together under Mississippi Black Women Roundtable. Thank you all so much for the work that you all do there. And Miss Robin Jackson, if you're listening, I know she's been on hiatus just a little bit, and she has a new one. She has a little girl now.
Her name is Denver.
Yeah, she has a match. So shout out, Robin. We wish you success, and take your time off and love on that baby. And we look forward to seeing her. I can't babysit. Don't call me and ask me about okay. I can refer you to somebody, but as a grandmother of 5 and no more little ones, that ain't my lane, as they say anymore.
Right.
But I can connect you with some babysitters. Okay, so we wish you so much success, and shout out to Robin too for all of the work that she does within the organization. We love her so much. Thank you again, Cassandra. Equal Pay Day tomorrow. Go to the Facebook page. We're also going to be sharing stuff onto our page. So some reason you get bogged down, you can't find the Black Women Roundtable, check out the Women for Progress MS page. We're going to post a bunch of stuff there and a bunch of links for you there over this part of the afternoon, so you can get that information too. Thank you so much again. And this has been the Working Woman Report every Wednesday from 12 to 1. Produced by Women for Progress Media. Thanks so much, Cassandra, and have a wonderful week, okay?
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.